Hi Sarah, Mr. Chambers here, and ready to critique your first assignment, the apples of gold. We based it on Proverbs 25:11, which says, "The word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver," and the assignment was to interpret that. I gave you three choices for your sketches. One was to do three sketches of one still life, but looking at it from different angles. The second option was to do three sketches of the same still life but under different lighting situations, which is what you kind of in one way did. And the third one was to do three sketches of three different setups, so maybe the same thing but just arranged differently, which you also did here. The one thing I would say is when you're doing an assignment, or when you're doing more aptly a composition is really more than anything, it's about balance. They call it design, but good design has a good balance. You could have, for instance, in a portrait, I can do a portrait, and the main thing in a portrait, my objective, is the sitter. I want to convey to the audience something about my subject, right? Would I do a king with that's overloaded with background so that he look kind of dominated by the background? Of course not. Not for a child. A child is small and young, and looking small in a portrait with a bigger background is a little bit more acceptable. So that's the size relationship. But the other thing that we're going to focus on today that determines a good composition is the light and shadow masses, the arrangement of lights and darks. And so looking at your still life here, looking at this first one, the main thing you want to do when you're looking at lights and darks, you want to do a lot of squinting. You almost want to have your eyes closed so that what you're doing is getting rid of the extraneous details and you're focusing on the big shapes. Now when we look at this first one here and you squint, there's a lot of halftone value. There's a little black here, which is inconsequential to the still life. So if I was to look at this one and enlarge it, it's probably more akin to the composition that you have, which is probably something more like that, right? Well, the way you sketched it doesn't give a whole lot. Like if you look at this sketch, you say, well, there's nothing that grabs you about it. So what can we do about that? Well, the first thing we can do is get the values right. So looking at this, if we get this value of this apple, I'm just kind of sketching. Okay, so there's a value for that apple, right? Okay, all right, great. And what about this one in the foreground? Yes, now the one thing is an apple is pretty much, for the most part, an apple is round. It doesn't have a squishy shape, like that. Might have kind of a big on top and more narrow on the bottom, right? So when you're drawing this apple, you want to make sure, okay, I'm conveying that. I'm conveying the size of the apple. And then you want to say, okay, now what's the value of this one? It's also kind of gray, so let's just sketch that in real quick. And I'm sorry for not being accurate with this marker. Let's see. Alright, so now that's a little bit more accurate to what's going on. Let's try and put in some of this area around it. Like you have a lot of grays in there, so let's just say we get some of that gray of the tray in there. Okay, but that tells me a little bit more what's going on. Now if you leave the background white, that makes it a little bit more interesting. Now this apple over here is going to have a little bit of shading. Now I've got a little bit more information on this composition, don't I? And let's just say let's get a black marker in here. Okay. We have to look a little bit more accurately at the shadows. So we've got a little bit more of a shadow right here. Okay, that gives a little bit of form, and also influences the design a little bit. A little bit more of a shadow separation here. See, now you've got something a little bit more interesting to look at. This tray kind of came off into it, a little bit leading into it. It wasn't straight across. Okay, that adds a little bit of dimension to it. Okay, so that's a more accurate sketch. Because the purpose of the sketch is to help you decide, hey, do I want to move forward with this one, or do I want to let it go? I'm looking at this next one down here. Let's see what we're looking at. Let's see, we have a little bit more. I'm going to run with your shadows a little bit. And so we have this shadow. Okay, of course we have the, I'm assuming that by choice you made the shadows a little bit different than what you were looking at. And just some advice, it's not always a good idea to do that, because the reason those shadows are there is by the way the lighting is hitting. You start changing it and now you're actually making up things. So I'm going to, just by the way I usually practice, I'm going to go ahead and draw things in the way they are. Now the next thing I need to do is get the values of those apples in there, right? So let's get that in there. That's funny, we did apples of gold, but these are apples of red. This is, I thought about the same thing because I was going to do a quick sketch and I said, well, I don't have any golden apples. And then we have to add some value to the shadow mask of the apples, because that does totally affect the design. And same over here. Okay, so now we've got a little bit more of an influence of what the design is like. So basically when you're doing your sketches, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're getting the light and shadow masses. See how that influences the look of your drawing? Accuracy wise, this angle here is more like this, and then it wraps around like that. So we have that shadow here, and that influences the design as well. See, now that makes it more interesting. So see how by looking at this you get a little bit more of an idea of what kind of shapes, what the light and shadow masses, how they influence your composition. And that's very important. What you put in here doesn't really convey what's really going on there. You did an outline of what everything, the placement of everything, but it doesn't help you in terms of your composition. You need to see the big shapes, the light and dark of things. Unless of course you were doing a line drawing, but that was not the assignment. So see how all of a sudden now in this one there's a little bit more of an idea of what's happening now. You see, so shade this, and now we're seeing a little bit more accuracy of what we're working with in terms of light and shade. You carry that over into this drawing, into your big one. Now you look at one of these three and you say, you know what, I like number 2, I like number 3 or 1, whatever it is. You do the same thing here and you refine those values a little bit. Each one of these should probably take you about 5 minutes. This big one, you know, maybe spend 10 minutes on it, because you've already done it once in a small thumbnail sketch, and when you do the big one the information's already been thought out. But now what you might do is you might say, let's see, for instance, let's say you were going to crop this. Let me find my cropping tool here. You know, you're looking at this one, let's say, and you say, you know, I think I'm going to crop that to be more like that. You see what I'm saying here? You say, no, I don't like that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this when I do my big sketch. I want to show more. No, don't really like that. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, if you have any questions, go ahead and email me at studio@timothychambers.com. Of course, you know the website is www.timothychambers.com or iguanapaint.com. Thanks. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to seeing you develop these do this assignment again, or just go ahead and work on the sketch that you did, but show me the masses and then show me the big one. The last thing I just want to remind you is look at this angle. This angle here is about what, maybe 20 or 30 degrees. Well, here the angle you have is definitely more toward like a 45-degree angle. That makes sense? Okay. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you later.